what do you think's going to be like the future of commerce? And I said, well, I think it's going to be centered around agents, like shopping agents. I'm so fortunate to be alive the time I am. I just get excited. The amount of opportunity and excitement, we'll be looking back on that in 10 years going, wow, I can't believe we were around in 2024 and the beginning of AI. And here we are, right?
Jimmy Kim is a legend in the e-commerce space. He's specialized in email marketing for 17 plus years. He's a former e-commerce brand owner, a former e-commerce SaaS founder, a retention expert, an event founder, host of an e-commerce podcaster, and an all-around expert on all things e-commerce.
It's really changing the way that like companies can grow and become something. The ability that it's giving people, the 10x ability I call it, a single human that you would have maybe needed 3, 4, 5 people to do. Yeah. And now that job becomes a single person entity. If you're not investing your time in it, you should at least go learn about it. If you're not doing it, someone else is doing it.
It's such a pleasure to have the legend who, the podcasting legend himself from the Awesome Pod. Are you the official host of the Awesome Pod?
I am the official host and moderator. At least I call myself that.
You're the guy that keeps the other three like in check, right? Like if it wasn't for you, that show I don't think would happen.
Yeah, I do everything on the show notes to developing the shows to post-production. So yeah, I would say I'm in charge of the organization.
We don't want to throw them under the bus, but like we all know.
They know this. They'd be willing to admit this. Don't worry.
Brian does the raps, like John's got the zingers and yeah, no, it's such a fun podcast. So for those of you who don't know, we're going to obviously get into some good stuff right away here, but Jimmy is host of the Awesome Pod, and it is a fantastic podcast. It's probably one of my favorite podcasts for related to e-commerce. It's kind of one of the only ones that I would say is like, what it reminds me of? I don't know if this is what you're going for or not. So don't know how you'll take this, but do you listen to the All In Pod?
Of course.
Yeah. So I feel like
exactly the initial idea around it. And then we kind of, took our spin on the thing, an idea.
It's like All In, but for e-commerce. Is that
yes.
Yeah. I love it. So anyways, check it out for all those listening. But you are more than just a host of a podcast. You have such an incredible history in the e-commerce space, which is why I wanted to reach out to you to bring you on. Cause I think there's a ton of value that I think you'll bring to the listeners. And, even just from things I see you post on LinkedIn and always sharing stuff, you speak at events. Why don't we start with actually, let's do a quick intro because I want to before you enter it. So you give me your background, kind of where you came from and how you got to where you are today. In a nutshell. Yeah.
It's a long background. I've been on the internet for quite some time. I guess I'll kind of start from the beginning, right? I'll first age myself because people realize I'm like a dinosaur in this space when it comes to how long I've been around. But I started my first career, my first life in the car business, believe it or not. That's where I started all the way back to 2000. So I did a lot of things in the car business. At my peak pinnacle, I was a general manager for 3 Saturn stores. If you even remember what Saturn is.
Yes. The one that you could dent your leg into and it would pop back out, right?
The one you could kick. Yeah. The one you could kick. And part of our demo was to kick a car.
Yeah. I went to a dealership once and that was the first thing that the guy did is he stuck his knee into the door and he goes, watch this. Popped it in and it popped right back out.
Yep, that's crazy. It. So that's where I started. And then I fell in love with the internet in around 2008, right at that recession bubble, the last big one that we had. And I turned online and that's where I started my internet career. So my journey started off working for someone, learning about the internet, learning about marketing, and ended up leading into my very first company. And my very first company was in affiliate marketing, actually. I fell in love with the idea that, you could be a middleman and make money by promoting other people's products. And so that was how I started. And it kind of drove me into this content creator space where I started teaching people other stuff. And that led me into my first brand, actually. That's how I ended up in a brand. So I was an owner and my story goes like this. I had a friend who had a men's streetwear clothing retail boutique store, right? Okay. He was selling other people's stuff. It was a storefront, all that stuff. He came to me one day because he needed money. He had created his own line of clothes, a cut and sew menswear clothing line, and he needed $50K from me. So I gave him the $50K and he went and produced it. And then he sold out of it over whatever term. And I remember going back into his store and saying let's go figure out how to make my terms and how to get my money back out of it. And I said, hey, how did you do? And he's like, well, we did it well in retail. We did some wholesale, yada, yada, yada. And I said, well, how'd you do online? And he was like, we don't have an online. And I was like, this is 2013. And I'm like, this is opportunity, and that's all I hear, right? So we
Mhm.
spun up the first Shopify store with him,
Hmm.
right? So in 2013, I said, let me become a partner and let's go do this. So over the next 4 years, it was kind of an incredible journey. We went from expanding our storefront to shrinking our storefront to creating this huge warehouse, and we went almost fully direct to consumer. We stopped carrying third party
Hmm.
clothing and we were selling our own clothing. We are doing all cut and sew manufacturing. And I learned a lot during that time. And
Yeah.
so that was probably my second like journey into building and scaling something really fun. We scaled to about a $10 million business
Wow.
at that point, and it was pretty good back in 2013 when direct to
T
consumer is quite early still at that point. And that led me to where I went next, which was SendLane.
Hmm.
So the story of SendLane was one of those fun stories. Back in 2013, when I was a content creator, I was an affiliate marketer, and I had this clothing store. Myself and two other people, we all had this problem. We loved email, but we couldn't find products that did what we wanted it to do. So we thought we were super smart and that we would just go invest money and we'd go build this product. And we did somehow. And it was really bad, but it worked and it did what we needed to do and it helped us make money. In 2017, I had an acquisition offer on my company. I wanted to exit my partnership in the clothing store because it was really tough and we were just having some creative challenges between myself and the partner. And I looked around and I said, what do I want to go start next? So I started the company called SendLane.
Hmm.
And SendLane was the idea that I wanted to create a marketing automation platform, focused on what I believed that we needed in e-commerce. And of course, Klaviyo was on its up and early rise at that point. And I knew that I wanted to go build something that I thought, being a practitioner and someone who had been in e-commerce, that I can go build something similar. And of course, that took a heck of a lot longer and a lot more work than I ever imagined. But that was a really interesting
Hmm.
experience. I went all in on it and spent the next 7, 8 years on it, working on it. Essentially, we went off and raised a ton of capital. I think I raised like $35 million in VC funding over the time that I was there. And then in 2023, I realized that I was quite bored of everything I was doing there as an entrepreneur, someone who wanted to go off. So we ended up going out and finding a CEO to replace myself, and I stepped out of the company in early 2024. So that led me to where I am today. And today, when people ask me what I do, man, I do a lot of stuff, right? I do this, I do the podcast, this podcast. I actually have two podcasts, believe it or
Well,
not, as crazy as that is, right? I have a second podcast with Chase Diamond called Send It. It's a
yeah.
retention marketing focused podcast. So I do that. And then I do the Awesome Pod, which is the whole agency SaaS operator and marketer pod, which is more of a show perspective. But how I actually make money, because those don't actually make me any money. They're these freebie things that we do in the market. I do three things. First, I consider myself a media company. We have newsletters, we have a community, we have courses, we have certifications all around email and retention marketing, right? That's the first thing I do. The second thing I do, I actually own an event. Now, this event is called Commerce Roundtable. It's a direct to consumer, community driven event. And what's interesting about the event, I always tell people, is it's not a moneymaker. It's very much a thought leader, networking. It's a place where I get to meet a lot of great people like yourself and other people in the market. And we put together a really good event around that. And that's something that we do. And then third thing I do is we run kind of a B2B growth service where we're selling a lot of our media assets into the market, like a podcast sponsorship or newsletter sponsorship and different things. And that's how I ultimately end up making
Hmm.
money. A lot of myself, I'm fortunate that I made a lot of money when I was younger. And I live off a lot of that stuff. And, some of the exits that I had in the past helped me do that. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell, man.
Uh,
I've been a little bit of everywhere. I've been doing this thing online for about 17 years now. And I love the internet. The internet is a great, amazing place. And I don't
hmm.
imagine what it would have been like to do something else ultimately.
What a wild ride. And multiple times I just thought, the world needs more people like you, man. Like the stars kind of aligned that you're able to give back to the community. Like things like Commerce Roundtable that you didn't even mention. Did you or maybe you did and I missed it, but your newsletter with
Yeah.
Chase,
Yeah.
the multiple podcasts, like you're making this commerce space better. And
Yeah.
um some of it, I'm glad you're making some money a little bit, but it sounds because it's funny. I was going to joke when you got on the podcast. I was going to say, which hat is he going to be wearing? Because you must have like a different hat, Commerce Roundtable hat for when
Yeah.
you're on, right? So that's awesome. And you nailed it, man. I wake up like every day. I come to my desk and I think I was my timeline is similar to you. I'm 45. How old are you? Are we saying
44.
we're okay? Yeah, we're pretty close because
Yeah.
I started selling online in '98. I got a sense that we were similar based by
Yep.
your moved one of the stores onto Shopify in 2009. Started Bold in 2012. So our paths are similar, and I think like I'm so fortunate to be alive the time I am, and I know every time has different things, but like the amount of I just get excited, like the amount of opportunity and excitement, and it's like I have a million ideas for every one that I can do that
Yep.
I can actually have time to do, and it's no shortage of exciting things, and especially now with I feel like there's another wave around the corner with AI for sure
Yep.
that we'll be looking back on that in 10 years going, wow, I can't believe we were around in 2024 and 2025 at the beginning of AI, and here we are, right? So
Yeah, no, I have some cool
like,
projects coming up online in the next couple months that are all AI and focused around just where the world is heading. I think a lot of things have kind of like light bulb moment along the way. And part of my moving on from Sendlane and kind of doing the things I'm doing today are just because I see future opportunity and I want to be a
yeah,
part of it. And, I was a part of the .com stuff and I look at it and say, this is the next version of .com, right? Like this
right.
is the next version of the evolution. And I think being an entrepreneur, it makes you really just want to dive in and be a forefront of it because you don't want to be behind in these things. You want to be ahead of the curve. And every time I always feel like I'm behind, and this time I wanted to be ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want I was on a podcast earlier, and it's so hard now. It was like during the pandemic. It was so hard for the conversation not to go to the pandemic. I feel like every conversation right now, it's so hard for it not to go to AI, but it encompasses everything and so relevant. But
Yeah.
I mean, before I get into some of it, what do you think? I mean, so much stuff is happening right now, and with Chat GPT and potentially like well, this was look last week. It seems like every week it's new. I remember
Every week.
actually at Shop Talk, I said to standing in front of the TikTok booth and talking to someone, and they actually um it was kind of like an on the spot podcast someone did, and
Sure.
they said like, well, what do you think is coming up in Jordan West,
Jordan
yeah,
West, of course.
yeah. And he's like, what do you think's going to be like the future of commerce? And I said, well, I think it's going to be centered around like agents, like shopping agents. And at the time, this was only like a month and a half ago, he's like, oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Wow, that's an interesting thought. And then I remember posting on LinkedIn the next right after Shop Talk. I thought, well, one of the big things that seemed to be coming up was like agentic commerce, like
Yep.
you know, and all the comments on it were like, that's light years away. Someone like, this is a clickbaity post. This will never happen. Like, and then literally the next week, Amazon came out with an announcement that they now have an AI shopping agent, and it seems like, and I actually had, not joking, I think I had 15 different people, and I had some demo calls. People DM me and say, I'm so I was so intrigued by your post. I want to show you what I'm working on. And they're working on some AI agent stuff, and they're like, some of them are looking for investors, some of them are just looking to show it to someone to get feedback. But
Sure.
like, there's people, this is happening.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
This isn't the metaverse shopping or what was the buzz in 2001, like all the commerce was
Yeah.
going to be on the metaverse, and this is happening. So where do you see it going in the next few years?
You know what's interesting the way I've been kind of approaching AI is that it's not, there's a lot of fun, exciting things that it can do and all the things that it can do. But the biggest thing I look at it is it's really changing the way that like companies can grow and become something in this market, right? What I mean by that is the ability that it's giving people, the 10x ability, I call it, right?
Hmm.
Like the ability that you can take a person, a single human that you would have maybe needed 3, 4, 5 people to do.
Yeah.
And now that job becomes a single person entity, for example, right? So you still need the strategy, you still need the know-how, you still need the brain to kind of power it. But there's a lot of those menial tasks, those entry-level tasks that you don't need to go into as much because of that stuff. So like that's where I see a lot of this. And I see the future as more and more smaller teams that are doing bigger output, right? Just like when you're building Bold, right? You look back at the amount of engineers you needed, the amount of all these people and this thing and that thing, chatbot, everything you needed to do, you're starting to consolidate that, which is just going to give more people opportunity.
Hmm.
right? At
Hmm.
the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And I say this the right way, but like it doesn't matter what tools are out in the market. It still comes down to the human to drive that element out of it. And I think that what's exciting about the future is everyone's trying to continuously push the market forward with
Yeah.
solving different thoughts. And they're using AI because it's helping them accelerate and do things faster, like coding, for example, design, all
Huge.
of these things still important. I still think it takes the right people to do it, but
Yeah.
now you don't need as many people, and you can take a person who might have been mid-level and take him into the next level because they're able to accelerate the skill sets.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes AI runs interesting. And to your point, what we talk about today, man, in the next 6 months is going to be different again and different again. We haven't plateaued yet. And I think until we plateau, we're going to continue to find new evolution. And I don't think plateau is too far away, because just like everything else, it all has to kind of get big, bubble a little bit, implode a little bit, restart a little bit. That's part of everything. Crypto, any of this other stuff is all had the same cycles. And
Yeah.
I believe that cycles are part of good future evolution of things that happen. And we're going through our unique cycle right now. But the reality is, you got to learn, you got to keep learning these things, you got to keep pushing forward, and some will work, some won't work, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that that's where we need to be heading right now. And I think anyone listening to this pod, especially, like if you're not investing your time in it and learning about it, even if you're not executing or using it, you should at least go learn about it, because it's
Yeah.
important to learn what's going on in this world.
Oh, 100%. It's we were just talking about this with Ritas earlier. Was the analogy I like to think about is you're chopping down trees, and you can chop and chop and chop, but you got to take an hour sometimes and sharpen the axe, chop 10 times faster, right? And
Sure.
so like just literally book off a day. And if you don't know, I was talking to someone the other day, and if you don't know what to do with it, ask it.
Yeah.
Tell them your job, ask ChatGPT, what can I run this store, I use Shopify, I use these apps, or how
Yeah.
could I leverage AI to improve my systems, and let it come up with the ideas. Like
Sure.
you don't even have to have the ideas, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's an interesting cycle. I mean, even if you look back 2 years ago, some of the things that people were building no longer relevant anymore because they've already solved it and they've progressed faster than that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen a lot. There's a lot of that will happen. And look, nothing worth building ever comes easy. You know that.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if it was that easy to build right now, it's probably going to become obsolete just as quick. And the reality is, the builders that I think are doing great things right now are really thinking about the future and
Mm,
thinking about the unknowns and trying to pioneer things. And that's where I think AI is really helping people do it faster than ever. And it's an exciting time.
it
The
totally
world
is.
is an exciting time.
Totally is. Yeah. Okay. I sometimes when I think of you, I think of, certain people own concepts
Yep.
like like I was talking to someone the other day, like Gordon Ramsay owns the concept of like
Yep.
DeFi, right? I feel like you are kind of like the retention guy a little bit. Like I don't know if you try to do that or not, but like you definitely put out content on retention. You're passionate about it. You talk a lot about it a lot. Um, so why is retention so important, and why is it like, when you think about retention and acquisition, why do you care about it so much? I guess first of all.
Yeah, so I'll kind of start with a story. So in 2009, when I like first really got on the internet, and I was working for this guy, and he had this big company and this big email list and all this stuff going on. He put me in charge of email one day, and he was like, "Hey, go learn this thing, go write these newsletters and send out an email." And I was so fascinated by the fact that I could write an email with some links in there, right? And I could send it out, and in a matter of moments, that people would be taking action, and then they would make a purchase behind it. And that
Mm,
idea just simply blew my mind. And
mhm,
suddenly I started to really start leading into email. And then of course I decided to go build an ESP, which made me go learn every little faucet of everything with email. I always look at the love of retention as both a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing because I think that it's a really powerful thing. And no matter what business or anything I build, it's always going to be a core of it. But it's also a curse because there's a lot of more exciting things in this world. Retention is the most boring of them, but it's also the most important in my opinion, because as you know, and this is the thing I learned at the brand side, is that your first purchase is never the dollar maker. It's never going to make
mm,
you money. Most of the time you're spending it on everything from ads to inventory, the purchase, everything that comes into place. But retention is when you actually make money.
mhm.
Yet it's the most unsexy of the topics because, well, what do you want? A new customer, or do you want someone who's already bought from you? And the reality is, People want new customers because it feels good on the top line.
Yeah.
So, I don't intentionally do it, but I think after 17 years, it just flows in my mind all the time. And it's just something I realize. And every day I talk about it, it feels like everybody's learning still constantly. And I realize that the lack of education that's in this market. And so for me, I like to talk about it because I believe that I'm helping the people realize that it's really important. And, when we go through our rough patches, like we've been over the last maybe 60 days with everything going on in this world, I believe that people leaned into retention real fast because they immediately said, well, what do I do? I need to go tap into my normal customers. And they always come back to it because they
Mhm.
realize that it's important. And that's when it becomes even more popular. And then, of course, the good times will roll, Meta will open up, people will start using things, and they'll go back over to acquisition. But to me, I just have a big love for everything that comes into email, from the way that psychologically it's written, the copywriting around it, the design, the way the cadence is, every little piece of it. There's an art and a science behind it. And I would say that just when you go do it for so long and you've made so much money with email, you realize the power behind it. And when you can understand and really embrace it, it becomes a part of you. And so I kind of
Mm.
sit there and I know a lot of other stuff, Jay, but like I end up being pigeonholed in that, and I'm not upset about that. I think that it's a good thing to think about it like that. And we all have to have our expertises in life, and I'm a good generalist in a lot of things, but I will say in retention, that's where my expertise lies.
Yeah. I am with you 100%, man. I did I think it was 22. Were you at Sub Summit in Orlando?
No, I was not.
That one, okay. Anyways, I had a talk called the subscription death curve, and like when one of the things we notice, like with almost we have a subscription app, and when almost every brand, like it's like over 90%. I don't know the exact. It's like 93% of them they grow, and then they eventually flatline. They get to a point where they're acquiring as many new customers
Yeah.
as they're churning every month. And that
Yep.
might happen at 100 customers. That might happen at 10,000, but eventually you get to a point where, if you can only pay Meta for so many new customers a month, and 1,000 customers a month. Well, if you have 10% churn at 100,000 customers, you're going to flatline.
Yep.
It always happens no matter what. And the only way, we looked at some stores that didn't flatline, and the only ones that truly broke out of it were ones that had this, a viral coefficient essentially of greater than one, where existing customers referred on average more than one. So like
Okay.
some might refer four, some might refer zero, but on average more than one, right? And that starts at retention. That starts at the retention practices that you do. And, you know, there's these data points that after a customer reorders from you once, they're 26% more likely to reorder from you again after they reorder
Yep.
from you a third time. I think it's like 39. And then the third reorder, so the fourth order, it goes up to 48%. So each time they reorder, it's not just a reorder, they're actually increasing their likelihood of reordering again. And then they become more likely to refer friends as well too. So it's like the heart of this healthy business that I bet you 90% of brands just hardly. I mean, look at it this way. Like if you look at, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was roughly, at the time when I did this talk, I looked at marketing spend, and it was roughly 80% of companies, roughly 80% of their money spent, resources cost, advertising was all on acquisition,
Yep.
and about 15% or 15 to 18% was spent on retention.
Yep.
So, some companies actually had like a cell phone company you go to call to cancel your cell phone plan, and they'll like try to retain you. They actually
Sure.
have a retention team, but it's
Mhm.
it's side thought. Almost nobody had a referral team, like what their whole budget just focused on like getting existing customers to understand our products and become ambassadors. But then we looked at the impact of, well, what actually moves the needle the most. It's actually should be flipped. So I think it's awesome that you are preaching this because it's so relevant. We should be spending 80% of our time, money, and resources on retention,
Sure.
and like maybe 15 on acquisition. Yeah, I don't want to
No, and I think what you're driving home is often brands are reactive to this, not proactive. I mean, that's really what it comes down to when they think about acquisition to retention.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that, and you're kind of nailing it to the point, like so many brands sit and focus on the acquisition side before they've perfected their retention side.
Hmm.
And that retention side can be anything from just simple as email or SMS. It could be at the product level, whatever it really is. I think the problem that we all have, and you and I probably have the same problem too, is we want new customers, new numbers, big top line growth. But the reality is, if you can't understand how to keep your customer, then
Hmm.
why are you acquiring new customers? Because it's just wasting and burning and churning the people that are coming in that door, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, a lot of the thought process around retention has always been, and even today as I start new companies, new things that I'm working on, I am focused more on the retention side when I think about how do we make sure your customers are happy? How do they
Mm.
go spread the word of mouth and so forth? And you think about the business model and where I do see failure in, not just subscription companies, but any e-commerce companies, this. I always say this, right? The whole idea of paid advertising, it's almost an accelerant. It's basically, instead of going off and working on the organic side and working on the word of mouth and all that stuff, you use paid to offset and accelerate your growth, right? Get more customers. And if you do a good job and have a good product and a great experience, those customers will stay.
Mm.
Eventually it kind of X's, right? Your page should go up and then they should start coming down, while your retention and your word of mouth and your loyalty and your organic growth takes off, allowing you to spend less money to earn more money. But a
Right.
lot of brands don't realize that until it's too late, until they look back in the rearview mirror, or they think back and they say, man, I really should have spent more time on the product, right? And
Yeah.
especially at subscription boxes, right? Or like boxes or like their subscription products, you are almost earning your keep every month when you're selling that. And often it's not from your emails, your SMS, it's actually at your product level. Is your
Hmm.
product good
Hmm.
enough? Is it still serving the problem? Is it still feeling the person wow? Do they feel benefit and value out of it? And that is something that I think a lot of brands miss out on, because again, they're focused all their energy, 85% of their energy focused on the acquisition side. How do I get a new customer? How do I create new creative? How do I do this? How do I do this sale? How do I do that? But the problem is they're not keeping the people that have already said, hey, I like your product. Hey, I've made a purchase. Hey, I've spent money with you. Let me spend more money with you. And people seem to ignore that. And that's just been a problem. And I don't think this is just e-commerce. I think this is in all business. You see this problem happen. And the
Yeah.
best businesses in this world do really focus on retention. They realize how important it is and they spend a lot of time and money on it. And they spend less time working on the acquisition, which leads to slower growth, slower accelerants, but they also become great businesses over time,
Yeah.
right? Over the next 10, 15 years versus 3, 4 years.
So what is healthy? You say retention. I think that can mean different things. Like,
Sure.
as a software company, when we think of retention, it's how long
Sure.
you have our app installed.
Yeah.
But for an online store who sells a physical product, what is retention?
So to me, retention is keeping the customer in whatever format it is, right? Keeping them on the software, keeping them on the subscription, getting them to repurchase or rebuy, right? So if I'm a subscription company, retention is very much centered around churn. Very clear, right? Doesn't matter if you're software or physical product. How many people are you losing every month? And how long does that longevity? Because that's going to give you that LTV of that user, right?
Mhm.
And then you've got the other side where you're looking at a normal company, right? Like a company that sells a one-time product, it's a repeat purchase rate. That's your retention number. That's the only
Mm.
thing that matters, because if you bring in 100 customers and you can get 30 customers to come back and buy a second time, that again is your profit center. That's the money
Mhm.
maker. That
Mhm.
100 cost you all the dollars and you might have made a sliver of dollars on it, but the reality is if you put time,
Mm.
effort, everything else in, you didn't make money. So if you
Mm.
ask me the question, what's healthy? Well, if I look at it on the repeat rate, right? I always tell people you want to see north of 25 to about 35% of a repeat rate. If you see
Mhm.
that repeat rate, it means you're doing a good job, you have a good product, and the retention's good. If it's lower than that, you have a bad product or your retention program is really bad, right?
Yeah.
And then if you look at the churn side of things and you go over to subscription, right? On a product, again, it really depends on where you're working, right? In consumer, it's different than software, right? In consumer, I always tell people, I think the golden standard in consumer is somewhere like 5, 6% monthly churn. If you're
Mhm.
higher than that, then you've probably got too much leaking out of the bucket. But it's very rare to see that, right? There aren't that many businesses that are running low retention numbers. A lot of companies, when I talk to them in the subscription space, and you probably know this data better than I do, but they're probably somewhere north of 15 to 18 to 20%, right?
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
look at a 20% churn on a consumer good, that essentially means in 5 months, you are churning out your entire
You're,
customer base,
yep.
which means your entire acquisition funnel is broken because you are literally playing for 5 months of revenue.
Yep.
What's the point of having a subscription company at that point?
Yep.
There is none.
Yep.
Which is where
Agreed.
software is so exciting for people, because you have a 2, 3, 4% churn rate monthly or even less. It suddenly becomes a lot bigger because you can see the long tail LTV when a customer is staying for 24, 36, 48 months in a business, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you really want. And so that's what you have to start thinking about, because I don't think there's a perfect number. It all depends on your business. It's all a depends kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It depends on what you're serving. If you're serving in like the wedding space, well, when they hit their wedding, they're probably no longer going to be a customer. Just as much as if you sell in the baby space, you're only going to be a baby for so long, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really depends where you're serving. But to me, it's very simple. It's two things. It's either churn if you're subscription, or it's just repeat rate if you're just a one-time product sale.
Yeah.
And that's all you should be aiming for.
I had, Jeremy Horowitz.
Of course.
He was on last week or the week before, and he's investing and acquiring brands
Or
and
software companies, right? Or something like that.
well, both actually. So software companies, but also e-commerce brands. He's been in the e-commerce space, and he mentioned that reorder rate is one of the number one metrics that he looks at. Like it's interesting because, like you said, everyone's worried about acquisition and new customers, but he's a smart guy and he's acquiring e-commerce brands. He's looking at reorder rate. How healthy are they? Are they coming back? Are they, so
you can have the worst email program or SMS program in the world, but if you have a great product, your reorder rate will still be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy when you see that, right? And you just know there's optimization. But then on the flip side, you could have the best email and SMS program and have a bad product, and your reorder rate will still never be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the truth of it. Yeah.
So what are some of the mistakes that brands make with email and SMS? Let's talk about to not optimize their reorders or in general, like maybe not just on reorders, but in general.
Yeah. I have a couple talking points around this because I think there's a lot that goes onto this market, right? So to start, I'll kind of go with the basics. I think there's a lack of education in this space, and there's a lack of know-how, right? A lot of times when I talk to people and brands, right? Hey, how did you learn email? Well, I started my brand in 2016 and someone told me to install MailChimp. So I installed it and I just started sending emails. Great. Somewhere along the way, I heard someone to do something around segmentation and I started building little buckets of active emails. Great. Like that is like the level of 50 to 75% of the brands in the market. So if you're listening to this and you hear that and that's me and you go, oh, that's me. The reality is there's nothing wrong with it. It's just what you've been taught. And that's what's been educated because, again, to your point, they don't care. They're focused on acquisition, where they'll be meta wizards, by the way. They'll be wizards with Google or Meta or whatever they're spending their dollars on. They'll be excellent on there, but they don't think about it. So the first thing starts with the very simplest core. It's audience management. I was on stage recently and I was giving a talk and I said, how many people here know what RFM is? And people kind of stared at me blankly. And it was like 2 people in this crowd of like 200 raised their hand. And to me, when I think back to how I learned email, I learned through RFM, which is recency, frequency, monetization. It's the core of what segmentation is essentially, right? When did they buy? How long have they been on your list? When's the last time they purchased? What's the repeat purchase? Like all of these data points are right there. And the tools these days are so much easier than before. In 2009, I would download the list, I would cut it up with Excel, do a bunch of pivot charts, build those things and upload them back and then send an email, right? Dude, it used to take me hours and hours to build segments and send email. Today, with tools that are out there like OmniSend or Klaviyo, any of these, dude, there's seconds.
Yeah.
But no
and a lot of them are pre-built.
They're already pre-built. You click a button and they're going to do them for you.
Yeah.
And then secondly, the second thing that really comes into place is like, then they take their bucket of people. And again, this will speak to most of the people that are listening to this. They'll take a bucket of people and they'll just say, well, you've been engaged for 90 days. Let's just send you the same email. Well, there's a problem there too, because, well, the facts are simple. You got your prospect bucket and you got your customer bucket. 80% of your sales and your repeat sales happen out of your customer bucket. Your prospects, if you think about it, and you know this, Jay, like they come to your list, they opt in. Why? Oh, there's a coupon that they want to get, right? That's not high intent. That's a low intent value action. They go in there and do it. And then if they don't make that purchase, because most D2C products are impulse purchases, the longer it takes beyond that, the less chance they're ever going to make a purchase. Yet we focus on that list because that's your big list size. You may have 100,000 people on that prospect and only 10,000 on the customers. So you imagine you smush them together, you send them the same email. So to me, the second part of this is part of the RFM theory, but it's always saying, hey, split your list up. take those people and understand my customers need to be treated different than my prospects. The only job you have with your prospects is one thing: to either get them to buy or get off your list, because
Hmm.
that's what they're worth, right? They've
Yeah.
never sent, and anytime you send an email, it's literally costing you money to continue sending them. Yet marketers sit here and they boast their big list and they focus on this big prospect list that's never driving them dollars in revenue out of their pockets,
Yeah.
right? And then you can go way deeper than that. And that's like the core of like the basics of what I see in the market. You get into the next level of segmentation, understanding value. Like there's so many things, from copywriting to design. There's a lot of ways that people can optimize it. And a smooth running machine takes a lot, right? It's
Yeah.
not just a single person. It's literally impossible to run a great retention program with a single person. I understand that most brands can't have it. So that's where I try to get people educated on just getting something done to continue to improve. It's like just like be better 1%. Work on your retention program 1% a time, 1% a day. Do one little action, learn the habit, continue to get better at it, and you'll
Yeah.
quickly realize how fast you can move the needle. And if you can just save 1% more customers to repeat, 1% less to churn, that is a significant amount
Huge.
of money over a 12-month period that brands, they struggle to see that, and operators struggle to see this.
Yeah.
And that's really what I tell people. Like, you've got to start with the core, learn the education, get out there and learn from people. There's so much free education. You can do paid education. There's communities. There's so many things you can go out there to do. But again, it's an unsexy topic. Who
Yeah.
wants to work extra hard for the next 30 days to improve 1% when I could just go dump more money on Meta? I
Yeah.
get it. But the reality is, to have a long, sustainable business with a great customer, and to your point, a loyal base that has creates word of mouth, organic, repeat purchasing, all that stuff to happen, you got to work on retention,
Yeah.
right? So that's where I go with that.
So good. One of probably a whole bunch of questions coming to listeners' minds are, and how much emailing is too much? What are the best times of the day to send? Should I, what was the term I heard one time? Blow out my 20%, like the 20% of the people that will never open. Do I just like not worry about them and email every day? Or do I like, give me some thoughts around
Sure.
some of those like best practices, if you want to call it that.
Sure. One of the things that I kind of coined in this market over the last couple of years that people always joke to me about is I always tell people, send more emails. Okay.
You need a
Now,
t-shirt that says that.
yeah, I would
That's-
definitely wear a t-shirt. It's kind of like my motto in this space. And the reason why I say that, it's not to tell people to go spam. That's not what I mean by this.
Mhm.
What I often see is two things that come into place, right? Number one, people think that they can over email in this space. Jay, how many emails do you get a day these days? Probably like 300, 400 emails probably. You have no
I
freaking
don't
clue.
even know. Yeah.
And if I
Yeah.
ask you the second question, when's the last time blah, blah, blah emailed you? You'd be like, I don't know. You really
Mhm.
don't. The
Mhm.
world has changed. And the
Mhm.
reason why I tell people to send more emails, you're either in the noise or you're not even seen.
Mhm.
And it's a very simple thing. And when you're a brand, it doesn't matter. If they don't see you, they probably don't even remember you. And so there is no such thing as emailing too much on a given day. Obviously, if you email 6 times a day, that's a problem. But if you're emailing them every day. So when people ask this question to me, it goes down like this again. If you're a prospect and you've never purchased, I'm emailing you every single day until you either buy or get off my list. Go opt into any of the biggest brands in the world. They all do that. The
Wow.
True Classics, the Hexclads, all these, if you're a prospect and you never purchased, they will email you and hammer you until you buy or you get off their list, right? When they become a customer, that's when you slow down because you're trying to build a relationship with him. You're trying to show them things. You have meaningfulness behind that. And there's intention behind a lot of those things. But even
Interesting.
then, you can still keep the emails up and you should be emailing often, right?
Yeah.
And that leads to a lot of things, right? That helps you with your natural scrubbing of your list. How do people offset and go away? You want them to unsubscribe, take that action and tell you, I am no longer interested in your email. You don't be precious about it. You really want to understand that they don't want to make a purchase of your product. And if they do, they'll come back and they'll make a purchase later on if they really want to. And then the second thing to that is, when do you send? Well, let your customers tell you when they want you to send. I always tell people, the data that we have today as email marketers or retention marketers is so much better than we've ever had in our lives. And you literally, from your ESP or your analytics or your data or anything, you can tell when people are on your thing. You can go to your social media and look at your little chart and it says, oh, I get the most interactions at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, I should be in front of him at 11 a.m. I should be at 2 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data that shows a lot of the things that people mess up and like, oh, I see more opens at 9 a.m., but I see more purchases at 8 p.m. It
Mm-hmm.
happens all the time. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why that happens is at 9 a.m., what are you doing? You're getting on work, you're looking online, you're checking your email.
Plowing through and
You're not buying.
yeah.
You are opening, you're engaged, but at night, what are you doing? You're sitting on your couch, you're watching TV, and you're like, hey, man, I should go look at that product. And the people who don't, no big deal. They'll get it
Yeah.
later, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that comes into place, which comes into it all depends. And
Mm.
you've got to go learn and understand your data around it. So data is more relevant than ever these days, and it's more off in front of you than ever these days. You just got to use it. And
Yeah.
people just don't use it.
I heard a great tip that I'll get your thoughts on it. I can't remember his name. He owns it's called I think it's called subjectline.com.
Okay.
But it's a website to like test subject line and stuff. But anyways, he was saying when you email, if you have different types of emails, if there's like announcements or product information or sales or whatever it is, in your brand name, so say your name is Figs, whatever. And then in brackets, put announcement or Figs in brackets, product updates. So
Sure.
same email, but he said put different as if it's from a different department almost.
Sure.
So then the recipients feel that it's not as bombarding as getting it from the same, they see a different, it's, they said that he said the most underused area of an email is actually the from name.
Yep.
We think about the subject line, we think about the preview text, but the from name is actually very powerful. Offer. So like if you send out an offer once a month, have in bracket offers put in there. And then there was one other, oh shoot, what was it? It was on the tip of my tongue. Another tip he had. It'll come back to me. Oh, there was that. And then I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to not end up in the promotions tab, and they try to like word their email a certain way to not use the word like sale or offer or free or something like that because it gets flagged as promotional. And he was saying that they actually see better conversion from emails and promote. Like
That's correct.
we think like, oh, I don't want to be in the promotions tab because no one uses it. But first of all, less than, I can't remember what it was. It was like
It's less than half. Yeah.
yeah, of Gmail users, and now Apple has a promotions tab, actually have it enabled. But the ones that do have it enabled, they actually use it to find promotions. And
This is
so
correct.
it's actually not a bad thing to be in promotions tab. They actually saw higher conversion when it's a promotions in a promotions tab. So
Yeah. And on the technical side, it's awesome too, actually. By putting it in the promotion side, you don't trigger MPP. You don't trigger some of the things that happen with the false opens and the bot stuff. That
mhm,
happens more on the primary side.
right,
So there's
right.
like little things that are beneficial. And I'm with you. I've
But
seen this data all the time. Promotional tab is not a bad thing. You are
no,
selling something. You should be in the promotional tab and it's okay.
yeah,
Just sell better. Don't make a blame. I think this is one of those things people blame because they think that there's an optimization point here when they should be working on their copy, their design, their segmentation, their timing. Like there's so many other things to blame and worry about. Tabbing is natural. It's designed for the user experience, and the user experience, there's no hack or secret trick to go around it. You
yeah.
send enough emails and it's enough promotional emails, no matter how tricky or whatever you get, you're going to end up in promotion. But again, that's okay. That's what it's meant there for.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally don't open every promotional email, but I see the way my wife uses email,
Yeah,
and she opens every one from every brand she shops with. And so like we have to remember that there's a segment of people that that's how they interact with brands, and that's,
100%.
so um okay, so you talked about um retention automations. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but maybe can you highlight a few key automations that maybe every Shopify store that like the must haves that
Sure.
should be running?
Yeah, man. Look, there's only so many that really matter. There's a million you can go produce, but there's only like a handful. There's probably about 5 of them I can think of, right? So your first one is your welcome email, which is your pop-up follow-up, right? That's
Yeah.
supporting acquisition, not retention, but it's still helping your list, right? You're using
Yeah.
email to support acquisition, right? You've got your post-purchase, right? So they make a purchase, you want to welcome them, thank him. You've got your
Educate them on the
yeah,
product and
exactly. Tell
yeah.
them about your brand. This is when you start building trust with them, not before the sale, but after the sale. There's
Mhm.
no need to build trust with them before because they're either going to buy or they're not for
Mm.
most brands, right? You're
Yeah.
selling a couple $1,000 product online, then maybe there's a need and warranted for that.
Mhm.
Then you've got your typical abandon check. I'm going to segments together: abandoned checkout, abandoned cart, and browse abandonment, right? These
Right.
are browse and abandoned segments. These are people you've identified that have you have information on them, and you're just trying to get them to come back, right? It's pretty easy. Then you
Right.
got your like shipping notifications and all your other notification kind of things that you want to do. Very important, because these are the things that get the highest opens and the highest
Mhm.
engagements, and people care about them and so forth, right? And that's, I mean, outside of that, it's like, you can do the win backs, you can do the sunsets, you can do the upsell running, you can do all these other things, but these are the things that make you money. These other things are small auxiliary things that can help optimize, but they're not going to
Mm.
drive much revenue outside of it, right?
Yep.
Now, you can get more critical, and I would say don't spend time building all these other flows that don't really generate you dollars, right? I'm generating dollars by focusing on my post purchase, and I'm thinking deeper about my post purchase. Is it their first purchase? Is it the second purchase? Is it the third purchase? And I'm going to curate them with different messages. Same thing with an abandoned cart. Is it a new abandoned cart, or is it someone who's purchased before and they're coming back and checking out your product? Different intents, different people. And that's where you should be spending your time and dollars right now. And
Mhm.
that's where the needle actually moves for people. And people spend too much time. Again, I have one single post purchase. No matter how many times I buy, I get the same emails every time, but I've got 90 flows running across all these different things.
Yeah.
That is inefficiency. And I see that all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so when you talk about flows, I use the word automations. Same thing?
Yeah, automations,
So
flows, funnels, whatever the campaign. I mean, everyone names them differently, but
gotcha.
same thing. Yeah, we're on the
So
same page.
so between flows and campaigns, where should merchants spend the majority of their time?
So, I know you had OmniSend on. So there was a really cool report that OmniSend distributed at the end of last year, at the end of this year, or the beginning of this year, I guess. And they said that 1 in 3 clicks in automations drove a sale. And
Wow.
yet we all spend our time in campaigns.
Yeah.
I think that this is the two hot takes I'll take here. Number one, if you're not spending every 30 days in your automations or your flows, and you're not checking in and optimizing and updating, you're probably leaving money on the table,
Yeah.
right? That's pretty simple. And I think that people aren't doing that. Most people start their business in 2017 and then they forget about it. And they're like, yeah, it kind of runs on its own. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be constantly optimized and updated, right? And then the second thing comes back to your campaigns, right? Your campaigns are important, but the way that people run their campaigns is broken because they're just sporadically sending emails, whatever. And I think a lot of people don't apply a good marketing strategy around their campaigns. And
Mm.
that campaign needs to tie to your website and all the things that you're doing. So those are probably the two things I think about. What's more important? I think they're equally important, but
Yeah.
automations don't get the love that they need to have.
Another OmniSend stat from that report was, and it was that I was talking to Ritas, who's the CEO of OmniSend, and he said that roughly 2% of the emails that go out through the OmniSend platform are automations,
Yep.
but they account for 40% of the revenue generated
Yep.
through OmniSend. Like, it's insane. But everyone just uses it like they used MailChimp back in the day. Just create a campaign, promote my sale, Black
That's
Friday
correct.
sale. That's what everyone's using it for. But it's a 20x
Yeah. I mean, if you
difference.
work backwards on the data, it's 1 in 3 people are making purchases, a 33% conversion. Where
Yeah,
if you send a campaign, you get 1,000 clicks, you get a 2% conversion on that, right?
right.
It,
That's
it's
it.
flipped.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so people don't spend enough time on it. And so my message has been constantly, and I tell people this all the time: if you're not in your automations constantly updating, working on it, changing your bestsellers, testing different things, trying to optimize it, you are just leaving dollars and dollars on the table.
yeah, big
Yet
time.
again, campaigns are the pretty images that you get to go send out, and people care about those way too much.
So what about SMS? Well, what's working right now with SMS? I know it's gotten more expensive over the last few years to send. How should brands be thinking about their SMS strategy and email and how they work together?
Yeah. So SMS in 2019 was great because it was kind of like it wasn't new, but it was new to this space and it
Right.
was new and fresh. And then we hit the pandemic, as you said, and everyone was home. So you could hit them on an email or SMS and they were bored. And then the world opened up and then people started screaming, why isn't SMS working? Well, here's the thing about SMS, right? Here's two really interesting things about SMS. One, if you ever looked at the data point of SMS, all things SMS happen within the first about 2 hours, right? That
Hmm.
means if you send within the first 2 hours, you're going to either get that action or you're going to get ignored. Okay.
Hmm.
Number two, the second thing about SMS that's really unique is that it is really a now in times tool. Basically, it's about a movement or an action that you're doing, less campaigns. So things like
Yeah.
the sale is closing, or your shipping notification, or you left something in your cart. These are actions because they're reactive to the actions that you're doing,
Mm,
versus campaigns, which are like typically treating it like an email per se, but it doesn't get treated or handled by a user the same way. But the same thing with the caveat to all this is it's also generational. The older the generation, the less effective SMS tends to be.
yeah.
So when you think about how email and SMS work, they should be working supportive off of each other. If I've got a flow, for example, I'm going to send my email out as soon as they opt in, maybe a half an hour. I'm going to probably welcome them with my SMS. But then the SMS starts becoming a tool to help it close, not to
Hmm.
introduce, not to
Hmm.
increase prospecting, but to help close.
Yeah,
Right.
makes sense.
And then with costs, the biggest thing against costs is, again, and I'll say this again, for 20 years, we've learned how email works. SMS is no different, but yet somehow the principles are not applied across both email and SMS.
Hmm.
Think about it, right?
Yeah,
90-day active, for example, is a perfect example of an email characteristic. Why don't we do that on SMS?
right.
No one knows. But this
Hmm.
is really things that people don't understand. So they need to be treated the same because it's often the same consumer on the other end, right? And it's
Yeah,
part of their journey. I can't treat you like two different channels, Jay. I can't be like, SMS over here treating you on one sale and email on this side treating on a sale when you're the same singular human. But a lot of brands treat it that way. And I think that's a mistake in this market.
yeah.
I think you should be using it to support each other.
It's interesting that you mentioned I can't remember what you said. In my head, I heard transactional messages, but
Yes.
you said something else. But like not
It's
thinking back
now in the moment. It's now
now
in
in
the
the moment,
moment
now in the moment.
actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think back on the last few SMSs that I've clicked through, like I don't often click through them, but when I do, it's, hey, this is back in stock, or something that's very transactional, not
Yeah.
big
It's an,
spring say sale is on now. Like I don't engage with SMS that way, but if it's a transactional one where this, I don't know, this just in goes pairs with what you just bought or something like
yeah.
that, more of a transactional
Yeah, or your
style.
shipping updates or like
Correct.
any of
Yeah.
that are the things that people care about. And that's where that channel is used and effective. We get way too many SMSs, just like we get too many emails now.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to click on it because it's not like you can sit there, and I know there's tools and different things you can have conversations and different things with, but the reality is like you're still gonna click, you're still gonna go somewhere, you're still gonna have to go browse a site, and you're still gonna have to go buy. Like it's not different. An email is actually more convenient because it's your mailbox and you are expecting that. In an SMS, it feels disruptive unless you're feeling helped or helpful, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I see that change. And so SMS continues to evolve. I think it's an important channel. It's here to stay, but it also, a lot of brands waste a lot of money because they don't think about it in the channel that it's
Same.
actually useful for.
Totally. And I'll just give a plug to OmniSend here, who's they're one of the sponsors of the show, but it's so easy to do that. I use it, and it's one of the benefits of having everything in one platform is the intelligence of not overlapping and conflicting, and you don't want to send things at different times, but really does make it easy. So you co-founded Commerce Table. Did we talk about that on air? Or did we talk about that before the show?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Maybe before the
the,
show, I
the,
think.
that's the problem when, anyways, but so you're the co-founder. First of all, tell me about Commerce Roundtable, and then I want to dig into it a little bit because
Sure,
I love
sure.
what you're doing
So
there.
Commerce Roundtable started as an internal event at SendLane, and I acquired it out of the company about a year ago now at this point when I left. We started it because I felt that there was not a good centralized event that was really focused on the content and education in this space, and it was
Mhm.
never focused on community. So what's been interesting about that journey has been we've been congregating, we've been building this thing for now 3 years, right? And so we started back in 2023, I guess now at this point, and we put this little event together, super boutique, very focused on content education, getting some of the greatest people in the market to come hang out and learn and talk to each other. And
Mhm.
it's been evolving since that. We're on our third year now, and we continue to grow. The unique thing about Commerce Roundtable is none of us, I always joke about this, none of us in the Commerce Roundtable, except for our event director, we don't actually make any money. Like it's not designed for that. What it is designed for is it keeps us in a know-how, it keeps us fresh, it keeps us in a network, it allows us to be thought leaders in the space, and allows us to do something we love doing, which is to serve the community.
Yeah.
So Commerce Roundtable, it happens now twice a year. We did a Miami event recently. We'll be doing a San Diego one on September 22nd and 23rd. But it's unlike the typical events you've been to. It's not a stuffy a corporate conference. We don't have multiple tracks running. We don't have the traditional booth setups that you may expect. It's very black and white. You got two
Mm,
rooms. You're either in the speaks or you're in the networking area, which does have sponsors, of course, because someone's got to pay for it. But we've got these two rooms. And when you're at the conversation level, it's not Nike preaching you high level things about what you would do it as a $1 billion company. It's real
mhm.
brands, real people who are on the ground floor talking about actionable things that they're doing today.
I
And
love it.
so
I love
we
that.
really focus on that side of things. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey and we'll continue to build it. And, we're excited about what we're doing with it just because, again, the biggest unique thing about our event is that we're not here to make money off of it. Making
Mhm.
money would be nice, but it's not really the focus. It's not how we make money. What we want to do is serve the community and continue to learn. And it actually empowers us, man. You just like you go to conferences, Jay, like we go because we want to learn, not because we want to go off and sell things or do anything. We're here to learn and we've found a way to learn for ourselves.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's I good for you for doing that. I hope it continues to grow because it's you know, there's these large events like Shop Talk is great, but at the same time, you nailed it. Like all the talks are by the CFO of Walmart and this, and it's just you could maybe say it's somewhat inspirational, but it's not really practical. And then the other talks and the other track rooms are all sponsored talks by, to be honest, it's vendors like us
Yeah.
who sponsor a talk, and they get 10 minutes or 15 minutes to a talk, and it's they're often good, but they're promotional. So like to just have good content
Yeah.
to help brands grow, I think is amazing. So
Yeah, and we've cut out a lot of that stuff too, like the tech talks and all that stuff. Like I love the tech companies and they're important for everything, but we found ways around it so that they're not leading the stage and not ruining, but they're slowing down the vibe of the experience of a conference. People come, and especially at a brand side, when you're coming to these events, you're spending time and money to be there. And the thing you're there for is so you can do something and take it away from my business. Learning about a tool is not the way you're going to go build your business. A tool does not, and this is always the thing I always say, I don't care what tools are used. The strategy is what matters, not the tool. The
yeah,
tool is just a vehicle to employ your strategy, right? And
yeah.
that's where people should be thinking about.
So you've been in a lot of conversations with a lot of really smart people, really like founders at these events.
Yeah.
What's one trend or insight that you're seeing in marketing, retention marketing, that like maybe no one's talking about right now?
Wow. No one's talking about, one thing
What
that, at our recent
maybe it doesn't
Commerce
have to be that no one's talking about, but what's
yeah,
a
yeah.
yeah.
I think the continuous, we've just kind of mentioned about diversification of channels, right?
Mhm.
Of email and SMS, retention is starting to continue to expand out, right? Push notifications are pretty freaking cool. And there's a lot of value behind it. WhatsApp is becoming more and more popular these
Mhm.
days. Like more and more channels are becoming more relevant. And I think
Mm.
when you think omni-channel, cross-channel, whatever you name you want to call, fancy channel you want to name, I think the biggest trend that's occurring right now is you have to be where the customer is, regardless of what your preference is yourself personally. And it's
Mhm.
creating a lot more work for a lot of more retention things, but you got to be on Instagram. You got to be on TikTok. You got to be on, WhatsApp. You got to be on Facebook Messenger. Like you got to be where your customer is ultimately.
Yeah.
So to me, that's probably the biggest changes that is happening in retention, where in the past, everyone was okay with a single focus, right? Like, oh, focus on one thing. But now it's becoming, you got to chase your customers around because if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it.
Yeah. I heard a term that I love the other day. We often refer to it as the marketing funnel,
Yeah.
the customer funnel. And I think we got to stop using the word funnel and start using customer life cycle.
Yeah.
It's not about top of funnel, moving them in, moving them down, getting them to buy. It's getting them to buy again and again, and then refer and buy. And it's like the marketing life cycle is
Yeah.
so
There's another one I heard before. The new one is tornado. Think about like a tornado. It's just everywhere. There's a sporadicness, right? But you're
right.
trying to keep them inside of this thing that is going to tap in. If you think about a tornado, it's spinning and they're hitting different channels, different markets. They're on Amazon. They're on
Yes.
TikTok. They're whatever. Like that is where the world is heading. And well, we got to adapt as marketers. That's all we can do. We can't change their mind. We must conform to what they want to do.
Yep. Yep. And tornadoes pull everything in,
That is true.
right?
They
Like
pull it
it's
all into the
yeah.
center, which is to get them to buy.
Oh, Jimmy, this is we could talk for hours, man.
Yeah,
This is it's fun. I want to do our lightning round because we're
sure. Let's do it.
this like we're overtime already, but I don't care. That's fine.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna add a question in because you inspired me to add a question that I'm gonna ask you and then ask
sure.
from now on too. So I'm gonna start with the question that's not even on the list. The question is, what's your favorite AI use that you're using right now in your life that you like the most important thing you use AI for?
I mean, it's content still to this day. It's just helping me. It's literally my VA, my assistant to just talk to, right? Like
Mhm.
I used to have I'm a conversational person and I like to talk it out. And I
Mhm.
find that AI is a great way to just talk it out with different
Mhm.
things, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I do a lot of things with AI, but that's probably where I use the most right now. So, like, hey, I'm going to go design a podcast. It's not that it's going to write the podcast for me, but it's going to
Mhm.
allow me to bounce ideas, give me
100%.
ideas, and it allows me to have that conversation. And instead of going off and talking to all my hosts about it, for example, it
Yeah,
allows me to kind of conform. So that's my favorite use right now.
I like it. What's one book you'd recommend every e-commerce or founder read?
Man, you've probably heard this 1,000 times, but it's the Lean Startup, man. I mean, that's just a simple book that really
It's
explains how you got to think about business when you start.
and it's a good one. You can't yeah, 100%. There's a one I just want to throw in here too for listeners. Do you follow Pat Flynn at all?
Yes, I do know Pat Flynn. Yeah.
So he's got a book called Lean Learning, I think it
Yep.
is essentially. So it's kind of not it's not a spin-off. It's inspired by, but the premise is similar to Lean Startup, but in how you consume learning, how
Yep.
you grow personally. And anyways, I just thought of that when you said that, so I'll throw that in too. What's a sacred cow in e-commerce you think merchants need to shoot?
Oh God. Uh, a sacred cow that I didn't even see that question before. What do they need to shoot, take out?
Sacred cow that they need to rethink. Something that
Uh,
brands are doing that,
I'm gonna say the thing that people are gonna say: branding. I really think that people overemphasize their branding and design.
yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
What separates? I'm interested on your take on this one. What do you think separates like a one-time buyer brand from ones that create lifelong customers? What separates them?
It's just a great product, man.
It's a great. Yeah, it's interesting. The last one I had was the exact same thing. They said quality product.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
product experience, unboxing, like, it's just product.
yeah. What's one underrated Shopify app you think more merchants should be using?
Man, I'm gonna go off into a side since we're talking about retention. There's an app called Rayleon.io. I don't know
Hmm.
if you know what that
No,
one
I
is.
don't. No.
Okay, so Rayleon.io is AI segmentation, RFM, basically taking all that stuff I talked about, automating it because they've figured out data and all the stuff that happens
Huh.
with the data. So big bullish on them. I like what they're doing. Nathan is the founder over there, and he comes off a $7 billion IPO, and now he's building this new product. And
Wow.
I'm bullish on what they're doing over there. So that's probably the most underrated tool that people aren't talking about today.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to check it out. RAL.
Raleon.io.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great one.
Yeah.
If a merchant has 1 hour per week to spend on their business, we're all busy. Where should they spend it?
Probably on your product. I'd still go
Mm.
back to the product thing.
Hmm.
Think that not enough brands work on their product and building their differentiation and building their star. And I
Yeah.
mean, everything that centers around it. I mean, I think again, if you build a great product and you spend enough time on it, you'll eventually get the right customers to it.
Yeah. And I don't think I was reading this somewhere today. Someone was, everyone's got their AI predictions, but as AI becomes everyone's copywriter and everyone's video creator and everyone's website creator, the real differentiator is going to be the product. Like
Yep.
that is going to be more and more important than ever. Everyone's going to have beautiful websites. Everyone's going to have great AI influencers, and it's the product is actually going to be more important than it's probably ever been.
Correct.
Yeah,
I've always believed that, but it's becoming more. Yeah, to your point, like you can't, obviously there's drop shipping days where you can just go white label something. Like there's not saying it's gone, but it's continuously being challenged. And the reason
yeah,
is if you just have a great product, man, word of mouth, happiness, everything comes along with a great product. And people just don't spend enough time on their product. They think that it's good enough, and you can't be good enough. You have to be great now in
yeah,
order to be successful as a direct to consumer brand.
yeah. Totally. Last one. What is one e-commerce metric more brands should obsess over, but they don't?
It's probably their CAC, their CLTV to CAC ratio. Just knowing your data points. I mean, actually, I always say that if you want to get more broad, just know your freaking finances. Like
Mm,
that's something that you just see a lack in this market. But if you're going to drill down to a single element, it's your CAC and lifetime value. Basically, what's your CAC lifetime value to your CAC ratio?
yeah, yeah, and okay, customer lifetime value to customer acquisition cost for
Yeah,
those.
yeah, you got
And
to know your
yeah,
number because you need to know if you can afford the customer you're doing or you're just spending money and burning it into thin air. Too
yeah,
many companies are burning it into thin air, unfortunately.
yeah. And when you say CAC, all in CAC, like marketing spend,
Yes,
not
all in.
specifically like a
No,
specific
you can't
channel,
just
but
look at your
all
spend.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got to look at it all in. What does it cost? Every little piece of it and realize it. Because when I look back at my brand and where we failed in a lot of things is why we couldn't make money is we couldn't create, we couldn't balance that metric basically. And we couldn't outrun the fact that we
mm,
weren't selling the product for enough and we weren't creating enough lifetime value for the amount of dollars we're spending. And we're running on a treadmill and you can run on that treadmill for a long time, but
yeah,
eventually
yeah.
that treadmill ends.
And growth hides problems. Sometimes you can be growing, you can have unhealthy numbers, your CAC and your, but you can outgrow it, but you can't do that forever, right? So,
That's correct.
Jimmy, this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much. Okay, so you're all over the place. I was gonna say, where do I send people?
Look, I spend most of my time in two places, either on X at Yo Jimmy Kim or
Okay,
on LinkedIn at Jimmy
okay,
Kim, right? So
okay.
those are the two places that you can find me. As Jay, you mentioned already, I post a lot. I share a lot of information. It's all free. That's where you find me, and then from there you can find all my resources from all my pods to my community to my courses, whatever you want to get into. But that's where you'll find me main and every day.
Awesome. I'll make sure to include that. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I'm looking forward to seeing you. I don't know exactly when this will air,
Sub
but
Summit, right?
I'll be at Sub Summit,
Okay, yeah,
and
I'll be there too.
I think this might come out before then, but might be listening to this after. But
Cool.
really looking forward to seeing you in about a week and a half here, and
Yeah,
no, I
that's
guess two
soon.
weeks. I
Yeah,
don't even
it's
know what it
really
is. Two
soon,
weeks.
actually. I
2 weeks.
didn't
Officially
realize
two
it.
weeks. Yeah. Are you
Time
going
flies,
to
man.
Shopify Editions? No, because that's
No, that's literally right at the
same.
same time or a
Yeah,
day after or something. Yeah, there's no chance I'm going up to
yeah.
Canada.
It's too bad they're at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of
So
stuff going on at the same
it's
time.
yeah, spring's busy. All
Yep.
right, man. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you
Cool.
soon.
All right. Thanks, man.